Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. A special episode because it is, of course, that time of year, the special season. It is Frog Month.
It's Frog Month indeed. I can't believe we're finally here. We've been talking about it all year, getting ready, and now we're finally here.
Well, it feels like if Frog Month starts earlier each year, you know, like... You know, normally I like just to have it in December, but I've been out in the garden. There's frogs already in my ponds jumping around. I'm like,
I've been walking into shops in early October, and they're already playing Albuquerque. You know, jumping frog, and I'm like, mate, God, it gets earlier every year, doesn't it?
Oh, God, can we get a break from it? God. So obviously, like, this is Frog Month. We're doing frog-related games for all of December. So is like Frog Month, is it just like awareness because humans are probably killing them? Is that just what Frog Month is?
Yeah, and also just like, they're quite fun little guys, aren't they?
They are.
So just make sure you look at them and appreciate them.
Yeah, they kind of become like indie game heroes. Like they did like the E3 like indie showcase thing, and like every other game was like a frog game. They're kind of like a LGBTQ plus icon as well. And they've kind of ended up becoming. So it's like, yeah, thumbs up for the frogs.
Especially this frog. Let's say on that.
Especially
LGBT.
this frog.
Yeah.
The frog detective.
The frog detective, indeed. So this is a short game, and it's also a very new game. So much so that the usual Wikipedia entry does not exist. It's just a red link because it doesn't exist
I
yet.
noticed that because it's 3 games, isn't there? There's a page for the first 2, but not for the third one.
Yeah, all the collection. So I've just got the synopsis for the first game instead. So, The Haunted Island, a frog detective game, is a 2018 first-person comedy adventure video game created by independent Australian developer Grace Bruxner. In it, the player plays as a detective frog named Frog Detective. And I've also added it's on PC and Mac because I didn't include that.
Oh, is that? I was waiting for you to carry on then. It's like,
That's
you
it.
play as a frog detective.
Well, like everything to do with this game, it's pretty short. And also, because I knew this episode was going to be short, I've got some frog jokes that I'm going to slot in.
Okay. Well, you can't just you got to start one now. You can't. We'll start off with a bang because people might stop listening later on and miss them.
Yeah. What's green and loud?
I don't know.
A frog horn.
Like a foghorn.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Right. Anyone still here? Yeah. Okay. So if you've stuck around after that, let's get to kind of what this game is. So you gave like a brief synopsis. Do you want to kind of describe about like what it's like playing this game and what you're kind of actually doing?
Yeah. So it's like somewhere between like a point and click game, like a visual novel, and a first person puzzle game. And you kind of just walk around small areas like a town or an island, and you speak to all the residents, and they kind of tell you their problems, and in sorting them out, you inadvertently solve a mystery.
Yeah,
that's kind of what you do.
Because I thought it was like a straight up point and click. Like it kind of essentially is. You're talking to people, getting items. I mean, point and click obviously is a description of like the control method of point and click. You're not doing that. It is like a normal first person game. But yeah, I think very, very light point and click style is the best way to kind of describe what you're doing for the gameplay.
Yeah, I didn't even know that it was in first person until I played it. Because trailers,
either did I.
Because they're just people talking, so I was like, oh, they're just speaking to each other. And then even in the options, it's like third person camera, so I was like, oh, okay. And then I played it, I was like, oh, it's first person.
Oh, I never tried. Did you try third person camera?
Only for the scooter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course. I will say that just like before we go on, especially only for audio listeners, like look up a screenshot of the game or like quickly click on our video, because as we talk about it, it's good to know kind of like what the art style is and like the level of fidelity and because you could have a very different image in your head than what the game actually looks like.
Yeah. I mean, it looks good, I think.
I just mean you could like it's very like it's like flat textures, very like simple cartoony characters. I'm trying to think what would be like a good like what a good comparison would be.
Oh, I don't know. Like imagine if an early PS1 game ran at 60 FPS and you could move, the camera wasn't a problem. That's probably the closest you're going to get.
Yeah. So you obviously you didn't really know loads about the game going
Yeah.
in, but is it what you expected it to be?
I think for the most part, yes. One thing I'm going to get out of the way straight away is that it's barely a game. It's so easy. Like, you don't need to think about.
What are you on about? I was stuck for hours. I mean,
You don't.
where
need
did you
to-
get the pasta from? I couldn't find the pasta.
You don't need to think about it at all. It's more or less like you'll kind of naturally speak to the 6 people involved in one order, and then you need to speak to them again in reverse order, and that pretty much is the entire game 3 times over.
Yeah.
But it is good. It is good.
There isn't really a single puzzle. It's only this person wants an item, this other person gives them to you. The only thing kind of like a puzzle is sometimes you'll have to find an item and you have to kind of look for it. That's as close as you get to like an actual puzzle. So I think almost calling it a puzzle game isn't what it is. You're just consuming it. You're not having to think at all. You know, which, as I said, isn't a bad or good thing. Just bear that in mind going into it. That's what it is. You're here for the comedy. So I guess let's kind of start off talking about the comedy, because that's kind of like the star of the show here. Like, did you find it funny?
Yeah, the game was like, I was surprised that I was laughing out loud. It's just written. And obviously I'm on my own as well, so it's also a bit more like when you're laughing on your own. It's a bit weird.
You know,
but it is like, it is very funny. But it's to the point where it's like, it's so funny and well written that it kind of feels like the gameplay is a bit more of a letdown, because it's like the gameplay is at the level that a child could easily do it, but a child would not think the writing's funny. I think like it's slightly higher than the gameplay. Like, it's kind of a bit of a weird mismatch there between like how funny it actually is and like the things that they say and the things that they reference are like a child would not think this is funny, but then again the gameplay is like so easy that
but I don't think, like, I mean, it's intentional. Like, there's no, you know, like, that was obviously what they're going for. And, like, I think, like, this is a thing where it's like, oh, shall we put on Adventure Time or shall we play Frog Detective? It's kind of on that level, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm kind of the same as you. As like, I expected it to be more puzzly, and I do wish it was that. Like, for me personally, but like, I'm not saying it should be that. Like, I'm not saying, oh, it would be better if it was puzzles like that. I'm just saying I would prefer it, but I'm sure there's loads of people that this is kind of all they want. And I imagine it could actually be a good game for like a parent to play with their child as their first game. Some jokes will obviously go over their head, but like most of it is just, it's just weird, which I think kids find funny.
And also the art style really lends itself to it being weird, like everyone with these like kind of blank expressions, like completely unmoving, just like staring at you with their wide eyes, then saying something like completely unhinged, and then the Frog Detective's just like, okay, that's nice, and then just like carries on talking. It
was it as funny like after playing the game for like 2 hours as it was at the beginning? Did the comedy wear off?
No, so I played all 3 episodes on 3 different days. Quite big gaps between them, so I kind of feel like, even though they are pretty short, it kind of stuck around for the exact amount of time, and it was as funny, you know, towards the end as it was at the beginning. There's like also some great characters in there, and also stuff that's like even things that characters aren't saying but are just written down are also really funny. Like there's that bit with the 2 lobsters, the photograph, and it says, "We're not the same guy." It's like 2 identical models, 2 different characters.
I think for me, it kind of, not like it got like grating or annoying, but like at first just the wackiness of like, you know, this kind of comedy you don't get in games much, and so it was kind of more surprising. Whereas by the end, I was like, every time I talk to a character, I'd be like, okay, what's this person's stick? It's like, okay, they're always shouting, or they're always, you know. And I was kind of like, I started seeing like the routine, and then it, because of that, it, you know, it wasn't surprising me, and kind of comedy and being, you know, surprised or, you know, the unexpected kind of go hand in hand. So it didn't like stop being completely funny, but I'm sure if I like only played the 3rd episode, I would have found the 3rd episode way more funny than I did after having played the first 2.
I get what you mean with the routine. Like there was almost like at the cadence of it, there was like, you'd always have like the funny option in the dialogue, then like the thing you actually need, and then I'll leave them alone. And it was almost like I would always click on the funny one because I want to see what they're going to say. But it was like,
Yeah.
okay, there's going to be absolutely nothing of worth here. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
going to be a
see
bit of
I see the formula. I also think I thought the second one I think was by far the fun. I think it was probably the best episode.
Do you think?
I think, yeah, I mean, obviously it's preference. I think gameplay wise, it was the worst in terms of the formula because it's literally you go and talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And then you, as you say, you go back through and you talk to one, they give you the item for the next one. You talk to them, they give you the item for that. And it was literally like no puzzle solving or items at all, just talking, and then all of them in a row really quick, and then it ends. Whereas I think the third one, for example, it was much more spread out where you're kind of talking to people and kind of getting, maybe there's several puzzles you could solve at once and you still haven't spoken to everyone yet. It felt better in that way. But I found it, apart from the scooter, which was fun, I found, and the very end, the actual ending, like it always ends and begins very strong. I think the episodes were like a more like, almost like a cutscene, like a custom moment. But then the middle, I felt it kind of dragged a little bit for me.
Yeah, the third one was my favorite one. I think.
Yeah.
I feel like each game, it was nice to see them slightly evolve. And I kind of wish that they'd moved on more. Like the first one to the second one, like you get the notebook, and like I was a bit like, oh, okay, this is like going to open up a bit now, and it does by maybe like 3%. Like it doesn't really, like it does by the fact that you can label people suspicious and like decorate your notebook is like they just added a little something extra.
No, but like labeling them suspicious
doesn't do anything.
Means absolutely nothing. Like you never even get to a point where you're like, guess who did it or anything. Like when we say this game is on rails, it is completely on rails.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to put stickers on the notepad. That was quite fun. I spent probably longer doing that than I needed to.
When I finished the first one and then started the second one, I was like, oh wow. So like the first one was kind of like a little funny test to see if it works, and the second one and the third one are going to be like the proper like games. That didn't turn out to be the case.
No, they did flesh out a bit. I believe they made the first one and then they got some funding for like the future ones.
Okay, yeah.
Just from what I could see on Wikipedia. I mean, not much funding. Like these obviously, were small team games. I'm sure they didn't spend 3 years on each one.
Yeah.
Getting them working. While we're talking about the comedy, are there any just like standout, just funny moments you want to kind of bring up that really made you laugh?
I was really worried you're going to ask me this because I didn't write anything down.
I have a few as well, but
Okay.
do you want me to say some first? What you think?
Yeah. I'll have a think.
So one of the funny, it kind of became a returning gag is like for the first episode, like the moral of the story is that they like hate books and books have no facts in and are always wrong. And then like it comes up even in the second one. They're like, you got like a notebook, and they're like, no, like I hate books, I don't trust books. They're like, but if you write it in, it's facts. Like that just whole like books are bad, like as the moral of a story, just really made me laugh.
The recurring thing of like crime isn't real.
Yeah,
so it's like, why do you have a police force?
I know.
Don't say such stupid things. Like
someone's done something. They're like, well, what do we do now? Like, we'll make a bad place for them.
And it was like, don't say such stupid things. Crime's not real. You know that as well as I do. Or the frog not being able to wear a hat was quite good.
Which kind of tied into like the ending.
He's a great character. I feel like he's a really good character. And maybe the other characters are all kind of a copy of him. They all kind of have the same personality and the same kind of way
I don't think so, because the way this comedy works is Frog Detective's the straight man. Like he's Frog Detective.
Okay, yeah.
He's like the normal one, because if he was wacky as well, the other ones being wacky wouldn't work. Like they got to be being weird, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, or like say something crazy. And I feel like sometimes they went overboard where everything was so wacky, which means like nothing's wacky. Like it's, if you imagine like a really normal high street, and then there's like a giant like pink kangaroo bouncing down doing backflips looks mad. But if it's in like a Dr. Seuss book, it doesn't look as mad because everything's like crazy. Like it makes it less funny. And I think Frog Detective is a good straight man, but I feel like everything else was consistently equally wacky that almost... It made nothing wacky.
So maybe actually they're all very similar characters. All of the supporting cast are kind of written the same way, act the same way, and I guess Frog Detective is a bit more like, he's a bit more of a straight man. He's quite weird, but he is definitely more of a straight man.
In comparison to the rest, I think he's as close. Like he is. Almost like was it a Naked Gun?
Yeah.
He's almost that level. Like, he's weird and does kind of weird stuff, but compared to what's going on around him, he's not like overacting, responding to it. Like, he's kind of, just kind of responding closer to how we might respond in that situation.
And like, I think it definitely works. Like, the fact that you play as a detective and there's never really anything to solve is quite funny. Like, it does work. Like, I feel like this game does work. It just needs to be expanded a bit. I'd love to see it slightly more expanded than what we got.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't want to spoil the ending, but the ending of the third one was kind of a look of like what it could be like. Like the stuff that happens during those last scenes of the third episode, where there actually is a twist. And, there is actual, like, there's not consequences, but there is, like, something happening after the fact. Like, it is a bit more like, oh, okay, like, there is something actually going on here. It's not like, it's not like Disco Elysium. Like, it's still a joke, but yeah. That's why I think the third was the strongest one, is because
I think that if they don't want to go down the road of like putting in like more concrete puzzles and any like friction for like new players or people that don't want that, I think more moments like I mentioned where the beginning and the endings are so strong, more moments like that scattered in between would be cool. I think of like when you first meet Lobster Cop for the first time, and it plays like specific music and he's like running down the corridor to you, and like that's such a standout moment. But then in the actual like middle of the game, there's like no moments like that, or very, very few. And I feel like those are kind of some of the funniest sections, but they are really bookended at the beginning and the end.
And also, only once do you like dust footprints. That was quite fun. Like, even though it was really simple, it was still like, oh my god, I'm doing something. Like, I'm being engaged in this rather than just like reading. Yeah, that's also that same the end of the third episode is the same section that has stuff like that in it. I really wish that the game had voice acting.
Yeah,
because like it's made in Australia, and only when I knew that after watching the credits of the third one that I was like, oh, I should have read the whole thing in like an Australian accent. But instead I was like, oh, it seemed to be like without trace, this game. Like, where did it come from? I have no idea. Like, unknown origins.
I mean, obviously you run a risk because obviously it's a low budget game. So like, and there's so many characters. Like, obviously I think people would like voice act multiple characters, but like it would run the risk of being annoying. Like, I think of in the third one, there's the character who's always like joking in their thing is everything they say, and then they're like, oh, I'm only joking, like LOL, which is quite funny because it's just like does it in giant text,
and then, especially because like he does a joke back and she's like, yeah, I just said that. She's like, oh yeah, you'll be in like grave danger or something, and he says, oh, grave danger because it's in a graveyard, and she's like, yeah, that's what I just said. It just like carries on. Like, it's so funny.
But like that, I could imagine that they would have to get that perfect for that just to not be irritating with someone reading it out. What I think would be nice is almost just like the kind of classic like Rare, or even like what they do in Celeste, just like some audio, some like anything, is because it's the whole game. There's very little like diegetic sound at all. It's basically just kind of like jazz background music.
Oh yeah, the music is good though. The music is really
it's
good,
nice,
like really smooth. Like, it's like that same thing with Harry Potter where like the music was so good, it's like feels out of place because it's like elevated. This was like smooth jazz, like quite cool, like detective, like exactly what you're imagining. Detective music is what the music's like in the game.
Yeah,
and it also had
twist. Like, depending on, there's the scary one where it's more spooky, and then the Western one, which is exactly what you expect the Western one.
When you're on the scooter and it's like doing the like horse riding music, like that was great.
Yeah. Let's chat about the scooter. Did you... I didn't expect, like, on and off. Like, so basically you get in the Wild West and you expect to be riding a horse, but they're like, what are you doing? Like, horses are, like, members of our, like, society. Because obviously it's all animals. So you have, like, a scooter that you're riding around the desert. Like, and not like a moped. I'm talking about, like, a push scooter. But you can actually, like, ride around and, like, wall jump and stuff on it.
Yeah. I think it might be because... the game just doesn't really have any animations. It's like, could you imagine animating a horse? It would be like, they'd be, whereas a scooter doesn't really move. So
yeah, it's just like Frog Detective's walk animation, I guess.
Yeah. That's the other thing with the game is that because there's no animations, every person is just standing exactly where they are. They might like stretch, and like
Yeah.
yawn and stuff, but they don't.
But like
Except for
mouths
these, like,
don't move.
the
They just
mouths
have a
don't
big
move.
smile on their face. Like your imagination has to work quite hard while playing this.
Yeah, except for the dancing animations, which are all like unique and amazing. Which,
Yeah.
like, every time was a nice surprise to see them dancing.
But that once
around.
again goes to my like, it's all the endings and the beginnings of the game. Is always it would always end with like a dance party, and it would suddenly be like, wow, like they would have like unique music and all these unique dances and like camera cutting to like
Yeah.
the timing and stuff. And I was like I get it that they didn't want to spend ages making these games. You know, these are obviously like a fun, quirky thing. You know, whatever. Like, but like I wish there was. You know, the time it took for that section, I wish they kind of scattered that a little
Yeah.
bit further through.
Have we got time for another joke?
Yeah, always.
What kind of pole is short and floppy?
I don't know.
A tadpole.
Okay, so we've now lost
Yeah.
another third of our listeners.
Right.
We're down to our
I'm
final third still
I'm
here.
keeping with the theme. It's funny and it's about frogs.
Did you have time to kind of think of any more like standout like moments or just characters that you thought were really
this-
funny?
The supervisor was very funny because he
Yeah.
was almost a straight man. So he was consistently quite funny, the stuff that he would come out with. But it's quite weird when you first start playing and the stuff that he says isn't that weird, but it's like weird, but the fact that it's coming out of an animal's mouth where he's like, oh, I've just been on just
Yeah.
got back from a holiday with my wife. Like we went to Thailand. And Frog Detective's like, oh, that's lovely. And it's literally like, what? Like, what is this game about? Like, it's so weird. And also, I really
Yeah.
liked the Mystery Monkey. But I liked him from the
Yes.
moment I first met him. I was like, this guy's good.
Mystery Monkey 49.
Yeah.
Always in the big fan of Frog Detective's blog and always in the comments, big fan of Frog
Yeah,
Detective.
yeah. And the
Did you-
mouse as well,
Sorry.
Mo the mouse. She was also pretty
Yeah.
good. Great character.
Yeah.
And the one that was like...
on,
Oh, sorry.
so before we move off Mystery Monkey,
Yeah.
did you read Frog Detective's blog at all?
Only that one page that he's typing.
There's a real, you can look it up. They made a real blog
blog.
with him, and it's funny because it's him. It's other cases. It's not the cases from the game,
Yeah.
and you can read about it. And then they have a fake comment section, and like Mystery Monkey 49's in like all of the comments
Oh
as
my
well, like saying, "Well, but that doesn't work because what about this? Or why did you do that?" Like it's so funny.
Despite how easy it was, and despite what we're saying about it, I do think that the game is like pretty good. It's pretty much a joy to play, and even though it is so simple, the endings were like satisfying. I was coming away like, oh yeah, I did it, despite the
Yeah.
fact that you're doing so little, and the fact that like, so just I'm going to spoil the first one. They're trying to find a ghost, and it turns out there's no ghost. It's just someone listening to music. But like, that's fine. Like, it was nice, like it's very, very wholesome. It might
Yeah.
even be more wholesome than Ooblets.
Oh, absolutely. I can't. I don't think I've played a more wholesome game. Like the fact that like the edgiest. It's not even edgy. That it got was when there's a character that was like in the force and has to like loses their job, and they're like, okay, I'm going to hand in like my badge and my gun, and I was like, what? You have a gun? Like, just why have you got a gun? I was like, what? Like that.
And then Frog was
Yeah,
like, Frog
I've never
Detective was
used it.
like, I didn't even think guns existed.
Yeah, like that's the level of like wholesome it is. I actually because my partner Kai is planning to stream it and was like asking me like, oh, is it all like kid friendly? I was like I hadn't finished the final episode. I was like, well, I'll finish the final episode first, just because there are some games like Bug Snacks, which start very kid friendly and then go really dark. Like I was like, just to make sure that they're not gonna, pull the rug at the end and it gets really bad. And I did joke to them that they did, but but then they went to look it up and it was saying about how this is like the perfect game for someone who hasn't played a game before, like a perfect like entryway to like gaming, because it is so simple. You're never gonna mess anything up. You're never gonna get anything wrong.
Did you use the magnifying glass?
Yeah, all the time.
Just using it, like, it doesn't do anything, but
people's
all the time.
faces.
But yeah, someone would say something to me, and I'd be like, mark them as suspicious, then be like, like,
yeah. Well, you'll
walk
do them.
away.
You slowly walk away, and like their face would like blow up.
I did though that part where you dust for prints. I was like checking the picture frames and stuff. Like for some reason, I thought I was actually going to have to do something rather than just throw it at the desk and at the floor. So I was like, because in the second episode, I saw Mason Mole.
Yeah,
hiding.
peeking around.
Yeah. And I literally was like, what the hell was that? Like, went round there. You can't really get round there. But for the rest of the episode, I was on edge. Like, I definitely saw someone poking their head around and then disappearing.
I saw them twice, but they're really quick, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it was so fast. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like a human face because it's like kind of a pinky face. And I was like, what was that? I was like, what was that? Like,
yeah. We got a tweet from Looney Loo 9. I mean, it's not going to be the same if you're listening to audio, but there's a picture that goes along with it, and it says, almost had a heart attack from this guy. And it's the reindeer sitting in the hot tub behind that house.
Yeah.
Do you remember that from episode 2? Like, when he creeped round, he's just there, like... like grinning at the camera.
What about the real jump scare, the ghost photographs?
Yeah, see, that was another good bit. That's why episode 3 is my favourite. Like, even though the puzzle was finding the haunted one, and it was just look at all of them, and one of them will...
Yeah, I think, like the format, like the fact it gives you the scooter... which you don't even really need because like it's so compact, it takes more time getting on and off it than you. But you can ride around on it. The fact that the item gathering and dispersing is in line with the dialogue, so you're constantly doing a bit of both throughout, compared to the second one where it's literally first half talking, second half like solving. Like I think that all worked mechanically well, but I just think that like I laughed more in the first two. But I do think it isn't because the writing's worse in the third one, or I found it less funny. I think it's just because I was so on board and understood what it was that like it being weird wasn't funny. It had to be clever and funny. Whereas in the first two, something just being weird and unexpected would get a cheap, easy laugh out of me. But by the third one, it would have to be the clever jokes, which there are those, but like less of them than just. This is a weird character. Let's have a funny interaction with them.
Yeah. I'm also happy. I'm also like pretty pleased with how the like there's a bit of romance in the third one. I feel like that was just enough of the right thing, and I'm so pleased that it didn't like get dark. I feel like so many games get dark, and it's like actually it's quite lame. Like every game has to be like dark. It has a dark backstory. Like no, it's fine. Like just make something that is actually funny. Like it's good for that. So yeah. Also, I liked the whole like, oh, we're outlaws, and it's like, whoa, you guys are like mean or whatever. It's like, no, it's because there's no law. Like everyone here is an outlaw because there's no law.
We're technically outlaws, but we don't do any. Like I'm a poet.
Yeah, and the
that was another great bit where you help write a poem, and then he performs the poem to the crowd, and it's like, I mean, I'm assuming you just made yours as ridiculous as possible.
Of course, yeah, of course. I did the whole like, oh, he's an egghead.
Yeah. I had like a goblin on a rock, and then they went to tell their friend Ned about it because it's good.
See, that would
good
be
poem.
like, could you imagine if you wrote that and then they voice acted it? Like that would be so funny.
Yeah, like text to voice it would even be funny enough. Like Rhyme Beat City and Jackbox.
Yeah. I feel like it could have been elevated a lot, but maybe the game, the IP would do better as something other than a game. I kind of feel like it has a lot of potential. Like it's really good. It's just like the game side really lets it down.
I don't like. I agree with you in terms of I would want to play a game like this, but with like actual puzzles, like not difficult puzzles. And like when I say puzzles, I think like some environmental stuff, but like I think some like more straight up traditional puzzles. Like, hey, I've got this thing stuck in this box. Can you help slide it around to get out?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Like that's what I would want to play. But I think that there's an audience. Like I think it's just that part of the game just isn't for us. Like I don't think saying this needs to be that. I feel like almost it needs to be like a Frog Detective spin-off, or like, you're playing as Mystery Monkey, or like it's a prequel of Lobster Cop in his heyday, and maybe Lobster Cop in his heyday because it was this amazing detective. Maybe they're solving actual puzzles.
Yeah. No, I think things like sliding puzzles, stuff like that would have just been welcome. Like I've been playing Lost in Play, which you recommended. Yeah, the puzzles in that would be perfect because they're like completely self-contained. You're not really, obviously it has the point and click stuff, but it's mostly like, how do you move these 4 ducks across this river without them, running out of energy? Stuff like that, almost like Professor Layton-esque, would be pretty cool. I
Yeah,
would like to have seen.
yeah. I think probably a bit simpler because I mean that's not a difficult game, but I feel like for their vibe, I think maybe a little bit easier. But yeah, I'd have loved that. Or even like when you're on the scooter, like just have some random collectibles or a ring to jump through. You know, not to help anything, but just as like a thing to do. Seeing as you made your riding mechanics already.
Yeah, I did jump in the trailer and then jump over the fence in the scooter because it's kind of like a ramp.
Yeah. Well, I went up the buildings. I went like wall jumped between the buildings to get to the roof.
Nice.
I made my own fun. Did you notice an Easter egg?
Are you talking about old that paintbrush game with the dog?
Yeah, Chicory.
What's it called? Chicory.
Chicory,
In one of the
Colourful
photos.
Tale.
Chicory's in one of the pictures, isn't he? Or her. I don't know. I've never played it.
Yeah, so her. So my first knowing of Frog Detective.
Pikachu.
I nearly said that. It's because I said the detective bit first, and then my brain couldn't work out what word should follow, what animal. So Frog Detective is in Chicory as like a, as an Easter egg, not really as a character. And then you mentioned to me when you suggested about doing this game about that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember Frog Detective. And then, so it's cool. I don't know what the relationship is between those devs, but it's nice when indie games just kind of partner up. Like, it's not like a branding deal or anything. It's just like, oh, we're mates. Let's just put our characters in each other's games.
It's an Australian thing. Because, like, we were watching Finding Jesus, which is the Australian comedians thing. And they said, oh, yeah, Australia comedy is really small. So, like, we kind of know everyone. So maybe Australian indie devs, despite the country being absolutely massive, they might kind of have like a bit of
but they're all close. They're all along one coast, aren't they? So they're not far from each other.
Yeah, true. True.
Yeah, well, I think it's just indie games in general. Like, you look at things like Shovel Knight is in like every indie game and stuff. Like, I feel like it's just a community of like, indie games are often, they're doing it as a business, but they're kind of in it for just the fun of it, and the creativity often, are the ones that kind of rise to the top. So, like, why not? Like, why not? It's a bit of cross promotion, but also like just a fun thing for people to discover.
Yeah. We got time for another joke?
Absolutely. Hop to it.
Very nice. What type of shoes do frogs wear?
I'm not sure.
Open-toed sandals. Okay.
Very good. And now it's just us.
Yeah.
Now the room is empty.
There's still two more to come.
It's
So
funny. I got a little note of just the thing saying about, like, for me, I thought like the jokes hit about 30% of the time, but when they hit, they were really funny.
Yeah.
So I'm still waiting for you to match up that percentage. It's just I read that was the first note, was like about how often the jokes hit.
I actually think it was very funny. I think it's probably the funniest game we've done.
Funnier than Undertale.
Yeah, I thought this was really funny. It really got me. Like, there were so many just little lines that were like kind of throwaway. Like, there's a bit where this whole revelation's happening. It cuts back to Frog Detective and he just says, "Mate." It's like dot dot dot, and it like carries on happening, and I was like, "This is great!" Like, it's those surprise laughs where you just like laugh out of your nose. That was like happening to me in this game all the time.
Yeah, I feel like you found it funnier than me. Like, I found it funny, like, and I smiled a lot.
Yeah,
and and I definitely enjoyed it, but I definitely think I found Undertale overall funny. Like, think of all like the stuff with like Papyrus and like your date and stuff. Like, I think I think the thing that Undertale does is it does like a scene, and it will stick with like a joke throughout a consistency. And I think it's like the difference between like Simpsons and Family Guy, not in terms of the types of jokes, but like Simpsons, it might have like a joke over a whole episode or over like several scenes, whereas Family Guy's like cut to a skit, it's almost closer to like a sketch show. This is much more like a like sketch show style. Like, here's like a splash of a joke, and there's one or two that do recur through, but they don't kind of like, they don't stick with any joke for long enough to kind of explore it and do twists on it multiple times. It's much like faster paced, like one-liners.
Oh, it's entirely one-liners, and like it's almost a joke in how chilled out and pleasant everyone is almost a joke in itself, when like things are actually, there's not any actual threat, but there's the idea of a threat, and everyone's still just like, oh, it's okay, like, it'll work itself out, we're not too worried about that.
Yeah.
Or they're like, the frog detective will turn up and they'll be like, oh, we don't even know why you're here. Like, everything's fine. Like, don't worry,
Yeah.
we don't need you.
But that should remind me of one of the funny bits when you show up and you're like, like Lobster Cop, it's you. And you're like, no, I'm like Frog Detective. And he goes like, God, I really thought Lobster Cop would be a lobster, not a frog. It's like, no, I'm Frog Detective because Lobster Cop's the #1 detective. And it's like the whole thing is like, and then like in the beginning, it's like such an obvious joke. But when the sergeant's like, so we needed to send like our #1 detective. And it's like, you're on the phone with Frog Detective.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, cool. And he goes, but we decided not to. We're going to send our second best. He's like, fair enough. Like, Lobster Cop is better than me. He's really great, isn't he? And then when Lobster Cop shows up and he's like, why are you here in my office? And it's like, oh, well, my office is right next door to you. Like, I'm just in the corridor. And they go like, oh, that's your office? I thought it was like the cleaning closet. And he's like, yeah, I know. He goes, I keep putting my cleaning supplies in it. And Frog Detective's like, yeah, I know, I'm in the room when you do it. And I always tell you that this is my office. And you'd say, like, quiet cleaning frog. Or whatever.
Yeah, quiet little
So
cleaning
funny.
frog.
It's so good.
I also think that Game Pass is just such a good vehicle for this.
Yeah.
Like, it is a perfect Game Pass game, isn't it?
Yeah.
3 hours long. Also, now in Game Pass, they tell you how long games take to beat. So it's straight up front about it. And the fact that we don't have to pay anything extra for it is like... Because, I mean, it would be 15 quid, I think, if you didn't get it for free.
PC only kind of sucks.
It's on Mac, but...
Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's really opened the doors for the gaming community there. I mean, like, I'm sure that's mainly a budget thing. Like, hopefully they'll be working on, like, I mean, Switch would be great for this game, but as well as, Xbox, Game Pass, PlayStation would be good. It seems like it probably did pretty well. Like, they mentioned, like, in one of the end screens, like, it's so good that so many people spent time in our silly world. And, the fact that it's reached the level of being on Game Pass and, the fact that they got funding. I think it said, like, 30,000 funding. So, not, like, big money. Like, it seems like it's garnered enough of, like, a following.
Yeah, also, I saw that PC Gamer, I think, gave it an 83. So it must be reviewing pretty good.
Yeah.
And Destructoid, who I normally go to for my reviews, gave it an 8. So, like, I would like to see it expanded upon, but I also wonder if the person, so Grace Bruxner, who's kind of credited as the creator of it, maybe they're a better writer than they are a game designer. Maybe they should...
Yeah.
Like, the writing kind of feels like the game is the vehicle for the writing.
But I
You know
think
what I mean?
that's
Like-
not like, because they're, not an accomplished designer or whatever. I think, like, I would say that more confidently if, like, they tried to make a complex puzzle game, but the puzzles are bad. Like, I feel like she made the game she wanted to make. Like, I don't think it's...
Yeah, definitely.
The goal was achieved, but maybe the goal just wasn't to make a game as complex as you would have wanted to play.
Yeah, true.
They've made more. Like, I looked on the was it something Spooky Worm? Do you know the developer?
Oh no, I don't remember. Hang on, I can find out
It's
what they're
something
called.
Worm.
Something Worm, and they're produced by the guys that made Superhot, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are called Worm Club.
Worm Club. Okay, not Spooky Worm. I don't know where I got that
No,
from.
and
but
yeah, Superhot presents. So I think that's their like.
Yeah. But Worm Club, they've made other games before this that look like in the complete same art style. You can kind of see back from, I think the first one was 2017, I think I saw. They've been making these kind of games, but it seems like they made Frog Detective and then that kind of got a bit of a following and they're like, oh, cool, we can make, a couple more of these.
Yeah. I'd like to see what else they made. I'm very curious about their games.
They're all, if you look at like the art style, like look at some of like the splash screens, it looks like they have a
Oh yes,
a type
I
of
see.
game
Yeah,
They like to
Yes.
make, like, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. Like, I wonder if maybe the first of these were, games they made at university or something. They seem like quite, young new game developers. I
Yeah.
wonder if this is kind of their transition into the industry. And it's cool because hopefully Frog Detective is going to be like a gateway to then, maybe make something new.
Well, the fact that they could make a game like that and it gets picked up by Microsoft and put on Game Pass is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think it deserves it. Like, I think this is a game that a lot of people would enjoy. So hopefully it being on Game Pass is a way, to get more eyes on it. Like, how did you find out about it?
I just remembered seeing a review for the very first one a while ago and being like, oh yeah, I should check that out. That looks really funny. And then just never checking it out until it came to Game Pass. But I was just like, I had it on my list of games and then to do for bonus points. And then when I saw this and Caro Blaster, I was like, oh, we could just do all Frog games in one go. So that's pretty much how it came to be. I've also just seen on their website, they've got a game called The Journey to the Party. And the picture of it is a little ghost. And there's a bit in The Frog Detective where Lobster Cop has got a photo in his office of him, like, it's like a selfie. And in the background is this screenshot of this game. Because that really stuck out to me because it was an actual ghost. And then obviously you have all this stuff about ghosts. And I was like, oh, we're going to come back to that. Then we never did.
The Worm Club Multiverse.
The Worm Club Multiverse, indeed. Expanded universe.
Time for another frog joke?
Of course. You ready for this one?
Absolutely.
What do stylish frogs wear?
I'm not sure.
Jumpsuits.
Jumpsuits. Brilliant.
Jumpsuits. I've only got one more of those, so don't push me.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. There isn't like, I feel like I've kind of summed up pretty well, like my thoughts on this game. Like, I don't know if there's anything else that you're burning to get off your chest about it, but I feel like it's a very simple game.
Yeah, it is very straightforward. No, but I do have some list things. Maybe we could have a look at. So should we go to the list?
Yeah. Let's bring the list up. Okay, so list is up. What's your problem with it?
Oh, so you want to do that first?
Well, I didn't know whether we would have to. I don't know what.
Yeah, maybe we should. So I've got 2 games that I think need to move up and 1 game that I think needs to move down.
Okay, can I guess someone wants to move down? Is it Halo or Prey?
No, it's not Halo or Prey. It actually might be a surprise to you, but I think the game that should move down is World of Warcraft. I think I got a little bit excited when Jimmy was here. It was a fun episode.
You wanted to impress Jimmy.
I wanted to impress him. I was trying to show off, and I was like, yeah, it can go there. But actually, it's kind of a rubbish version of Skyrim, isn't it? It's kind of
like, no, it's not. It's got the whole social side of it, and like
we
people...
didn't see that.
No, I didn't. Like, as I said, like, it was the least fun I had playing any of the games. I had less fun playing it than I did playing TIE.
Yeah.
Beyond Good and Evil in it are close for me in terms of
okay.
Like, I mean, I never was frustrated with it in the way I was frustrated with the stealth in Beyond Good and Evil. Because that was just awful.
It was just boring though, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I don't care about leveling up and like checklist quest stuff.
Yeah,
so, and that's what the game, a big portion of the game was. So it's just not for me.
Yeah,
I wanted it lower when we put it on.
Okay, I'm thinking maybe between 22 and 25.
Yeah, I think. See, the thing's because I'd struggle putting it under Enslaved, even though I enjoyed Enslaved more. I appreciate World of Warcraft more.
Yeah, maybe you can go there then between Max Payne 3 and Enslaved.
Yeah, do you reckon? So it would be there would be the new 24, and then put Enslaved down to 25.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Wait,
okay, sorry,
which
Jimmy.
way?
It's horrible because Jimmy actually like listens to this as well. The way it is now is Max Payne's at 22, World of Warcraft is at 23, and then Enslaved is at 24. Is how it is sitting at the moment. Sorry, Jimmy. Sorry, Jimmy.
Sorry, mate. It's just on reflection. It wasn't that good.
I don't think it's a bad game. Obviously, it's not a bad game. Like 100 million people can't be wrong. Like there's enjoyment there. It's just not a game for us. And this is our list. So if you want it on the top of the list, make your own list.
I think the bad games start at around 25. So if you're there downwards, then you're having a problem.
The actual bad games, they're the games that you can only like through the cloud of nostalgia beyond a start at 25.
Yeah. Okay. So my next one that I think needs to go up is Death Stranding. I think that has stayed with me. And like, I'm so excited for a potential sequel. I still think about it all the time. I still listen to the music all the time. I think it needs to go up. It's a PlayStation. It's up there with Last of Us for me.
So, I mean, I'll be honest, because you said it wants to go up, and then my eyes immediately started looking down at around like 10 and 11. I was like, well, where did we put it then? I was like, it's already at 6.
Yeah, but it's so good. It's so good, isn't it? Even you love it. You love it more than you said you did. I know you do.
So... No, like I wanted it at, like, I wasn't fighting for it to be lower than 6, if you remember.
Yeah.
The problem is so the way we have it at the moment is Death Stranding is at 6, and then above that we have Doom and then Prey.
Yeah.
But they're chained together from a previous debate where they ended up getting locked together. Yeah. Which means if it's moving up, it has to move up to be 4.
I think it's the 4th best game we've done. It's so good. And it's so unique. Like, it's like a unique, every game that we seem to do on here is like an ambitious failure. This was an ambitious success. Like, that's pretty cool. I think it needs to go up.
I mean, Doom wasn't a ambitious failure.
No, but like quite often the ones that we like, they were actually pretty cool. Like the games that we tend to do are things that are like cult classics and ambitious failures that are like, Whereas I feel like Death Stranding, it needs to go up. What were you going to say?
Just because I've been thinking more about how, like, I do feel it's a bit unfair for Kojima. The conversation around him is always about, like, story. Whereas I think what's most impressive and has held their test of time is how good, like, gameplay is. And obviously there's a team surrounding him. And I think, like, Metal Gear Solid 2, like Death Stranding, like, these are games that would, like, or any of the Metal Gear Solid games, really, like, they would hold up as being a good game. If you stripped all of the story and all the setting out, there'd be a worse game. There'd be a less interesting game, but it could still be fun. Like, you look at, like, the subsistence levels, like the VR kind of virtual realm levels, where there's no story, no character, and it's still great. And then I even think of, like, PT. I feel like PT's the scariest game I've ever played, and, like, he's obviously had a huge part in that. Like, I feel like he is underrated. He's overrated, but he's underrated in terms of his gameplay.
Yes, I said that during the episode.
Mechanics.
During Death Stranding, I said
you
that.
You did.
Yeah.
But I that's what kind of got me thinking about it, because that isn't what I thought of when I thought of him.
It's an unusual game. Never seen gameplay like it, and it's also a really good game. And also, it has graphics on par with, like, The Last of Us, and music on par, and voice acting on par. Like, it's got to be higher than Prey, surely.
It made your top 20, right? Because we've recently done our top 20 games of all time. So that's kind of like putting the money where your mouth is a bit for how much. Because my whole argument with Prey is like, you weren't as big of a fan, but it's right up there, one of my top games.
Yeah.
But I guess now, like, you have committed to Death Stranding being right up there as well. Like, I kind of lose out that argument, and I think we both like Death Stranding more than we both like Prey, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like the conversations we've had around Death Stranding have been a joy. Like, it has been so good to talk about a Kojima game. Yeah. And, like, how it's actually really good and, like, really comes together.
And we still talk about it. And
exactly.
Planning, spoiler alert, we're planning to hopefully do a best of 3 on it and stuff, because it's such a fun sandbox. We could probably do 5 best of 3s on it. I mean, we could add it to the chain.
No, I think it needs to go, the chain as it is needs to come away, and then I'll make another chain that goes across that gap another time. So you're saying that, I guess I'll call out how, like, the top 6 would be. So it would be Disco Elysium 1, Last of Us Part 2, Last of Us Part 1, then Death Stranding? Yep.
Is that where you'd want it? And then Prey, and then Doom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, I think that's fine, because Prey would still be top 5, which is really
it would.
what I'd like.
It would.
Like,
yeah, you're right.
The drop from like Prey to 4 to 5 doesn't hurt that much, whereas I'm kind of quite happy Death Stranding like going up from 6 to 4 feels like a bigger leap.
I can't believe you've gone for the 2. I thought you were just going to be like, no, we're not moving anything. So my last one.
World of Warcraft was higher than I wanted. Like I said in the episode, it's lower than I would have. So that's fine. Like I feel like I'm just finally getting my way. And then Prey, like I could have done a stink about it, but I'm not gonna argue down Death Stranding because I think it's amazing. I think it's more original than Prey is. It's more unique. Yeah. I realize that Prey is just like a game made for me, but like it has way loads of flaws that I'm aware of, and I know why it wasn't a big success. So yeah, I didn't want to put up a stink about that.
Okay, well, thanks for not doing another stink. Okay, so
for once.
Yeah. So my last one that needs to move up, you might say no to this one, but just looking at what's above it, I think it needs to move up, which is the Beginner's Guide.
You brought this up last episode, didn't you? Or the episode before, maybe?
I did, but we didn't really go into it. No, it was during the stream. During the stream, I said, I think it needs to move up.
Oh, was it during the stream?
Yeah, I really feel like, we just had a talk about the Frog Detective, and you were saying, I'm not saying that this is how it should be done. I'm saying this is how I would have liked it. And like the fact that you have to make that change, probably because of the Beginner's Guide. You're thinking that way because of the Beginner's Guide is pretty amazing.
No, I think I would think that way anyway. Like I'm always, like, I think from being a YouTuber for so long, I'm so used to getting annoyed at people thinking that everything's for them. Like I'm so used to like uploading a video and being like, why are you doing that when you should do this? It's like, if you don't want it, don't watch it. Like that, I'm used to be. So I think that when a game comes out, I can be like, why isn't it like this? It's like, well, that's just like, I bet some other people love that it's the way it is. So I don't think it's influenced my life as much. I know it's like, there have been times when we've been discussing art or like media since it, and we have mentioned about like the Beginner's Guide.
Yeah.
But I think the ending's a bit of a flop.
The ending is a big flop.
For the Beginner's Guide.
The ending is a big flop. And that's an important... And it's trying so... Like, I feel like that's the bit that's trying for the impact and, like, summing up the message. And I think it drops the ball a bit and it breaks its own rules. I thought it was more interesting in what it set up as, like, here's this documentary game series. And I wish that they kept it subtle and kept you inferring stuff. And then at the end, it's like, well, what even is this anymore? Like, it stopped being interesting when I realized that they were just kind of straight up... Here's like the message, and wait a minute, maybe I am like this. And it's like, well, who are you talking to, and why are you editing this? Like that's what I think of now when I think of the game. Yeah. Can it not even go above Ratchet and Clank?
I mean, Resident Evil would definitely be I couldn't put it above Resident Evil. Yeah. Ratchet and Clank, I just feel so bad for because we were so hyped about it, and it just has been slowly falling.
That's the reality of the list, mate. Things have to, in order for something to be added, something has to come down. That's kind of how it goes every week. Maybe this time it's Ratchet and Clank instead.
The rubbish film cutscenes for Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah. And do you know what?
Ratchet was so fun.
Playing Beyond Good and Evil, it's made me retrospectively think that Ratchet and Clank was quite dated. Like that kind of like lame, the humour being a bit like not that funny, and like the collectathon aspect. I mean, I know it's a remake, but I kind of feel like its time has come and gone.
I think the gun combat, like, it's so great. Like the fact that like you have a weapon that shoots down a disco ball and it will make anything dance, like even like the bosses, and then like the pixelator and stuff. Like
the pixelator was amazing, but isn't that disco ball thing in every single one?
I don't know, but like the graphics are so good, and I think that makes it better. Like if it was like, imagine like back in the PS2 and like stiff animations, it wouldn't be as good. But the fact that it's like the way the music comes in and the animations are so like, it's like watching like a Pixar film and you're affecting like what they're doing. Like it looks so great. I would prefer to leave it as it is. If you want to push and argue it more, like
no, 2 out of 3 I'm happy with. I thought I was going to get 0 out of 3, so I'm happy with 2 out of 3.
Yeah, like I really enjoyed the Beginner's Guide. It hasn't left a big impact on me. Like I don't know, Ratchet and Clank didn't, but I had like more. Like it's fun. Ratchet and Clank was really fun.
Yeah.
Like I won't go as far to say dumb fun, but like it was just fun. Beginner's Guide was like an interesting oddity. and it's kind of a hard thing to rank against other things.
Yeah, true.
But the fact that what it was going for, I feel like it gradually lessened the more it went. And I think if it had a super solid, interesting, thoughtful ending, I think then I think it would be, even higher than what you want it to be. But I just don't think it didn't. I think it missed the mark at the end, personally.
Yeah, it did. It did. You're right. It did. There was someone that commented on one of our videos with a link to a podcast episode that had an interview with the creator of the Beginner's Guide. And they said that they changed the ending quite late. And the original ending, I think, was probably a bit more full on, a bit more raw, they said. So
okay,
they definitely changed it for the better. But if it was even not worse, but like even more full on than it was, then I don't know how that would have played out.
Yeah, I wonder if it was like they kind of realized that, but it was too late to change it too much, and this was like the compromise, maybe.
Yeah.
So what I think they were intending to do was go watch the Beginner's Guide episode to understand that joke. Anyway, the good detective.
The good guy himself, the little green fella.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what is hard? The fact, like the game's named after the character.
Yeah.
So when I read like the game title, The Frog Detective, I picture his face.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to add so much weight to put it up higher because I just love his face. I love the
He's a great character. He's of like pantheon of characters that we've got in the list. He's definitely up there for me. Like he's a great character.
Yeah. Like, is there a character that you would more want a figurine of on your shelf than the Frog Detective out of anyone on this list?
I know it's old news now, but maybe Mr. Driller. I'd quite like a little Mr. Driller.
No one from Killer 7. There could be some cool figurines.
I'm not into dolls. I'm not into dolls.
Frog
Detective,
your Mr. Driller.
He'd be a good amiibo, wouldn't he? He's like the right little size for it. Like he'd be.
They did Shovel Knight. Speaking of Shovel Knight being on everything, they did a Shovel Knight one. I would quite like Ooblett's one, but only if I had like 25.
Yeah, and you could like put hats on them and stuff. Like
like roller skates and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I don't really know where to put this.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking probably.
I have a place.
Okay, if you have a place, let's go from there.
Yeah, let's see. My place is one under Halo Infinite, above Resident Evil, so that would be 17.
What? Above Resident Evil? You'd
want it under Resident Evil?
I think so, yeah. I think I'd have it around where the Beginner's Guide is. Resident Evil, like the birth of survival horror genre, versus this game that you didn't even laugh at in the third hour.
Yeah, but there's a difference. It's like saying, like, think of like any like great person, okay? Yeah.
Detective, yep.
Yeah, but then you think of the birth of them. That's them as like a baby. They're not achieving their great things as a baby. You gotta wait until they grow up and they work out the best bits about themselves and they get their personality. Like Resident Evil, that was the baby version of it. Yeah. And then I've played the adult version when they have their great achievements.
It's not 100 miles away though, is it? The adult version, really? Other than the camera being behind you, it's not that far away.
The camera being behind you is a big.
It does a lot. It does a lot.
It's a big thing. Like you think of like even same generation. The fact that Resident Evil 4 came out same generation.
But Resident Evil was a remake of a PS1 game. So
I know, and that's what we're evaluating. Like it's I realized that's the reason it's like that. I'm not saying and that's awful. It's like I get that that's what they were starting off with, and it looks amazing. But God, it doesn't make it half difficult to play in the loading times, the doors. Don't forget about the doors.
The doors.
When I said about when I think of the Beginner's Guide, I think of that ending. When I think Resident Evil, I just see a door opening. That's like my standout memory of the game. I think on my TV I've got burn-in of just like a brown square from just the doors.
Okay, all right. I think you enjoyed Resident Evil more than the Frog Detective, though, didn't you? I definitely did.
like what I think's happening here is I think from our conversation, I think you enjoyed Frog Detective more than me,
Yeah.
but I care more about like I love funny games.
Yeah.
Like I remember you saying, like I remember I said about Undertale, like, is it the funniest game you've ever played? And you're like, is there any funny games? I'm like, there's loads of funny games. Like games can be fun. Like I love funny games, and so I think I appreciate just the silly charm and the comedy more. I rate that higher, even though I think you enjoyed the game more. So it's a weird situation where I think you like the game more than me, but I want it higher on the list.
I just can't see how it can be better than Resident Evil. Like, that's completely mad to me. Like, it cannot go higher than Resident Evil. Like, that is an all-time classic, even outside of our list. That's like a industry-changing classic. Like, and it's the best version of that.
Dude,
and
World of Warcraft's at 23. Like, what does that? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's rubbish.
No, but that's you got to have a consistent logic. Either the impact and influence matters, in which World of Warcraft should be number one.
Evil, it does matter, and we both enjoyed it.
It matters because you like Resident Evil and it's your favorite franchise. That's why it matters.
It does matter. It is industry changing. Like. It's iconic. It's an iconic franchise.
But you can't argue that we're putting weight on it being industry changing if you've just said let's put World of Warcraft down to 23.
But we can put weight on World of Warcraft being industry changing, but neither of us enjoyed it. Whereas Resident Evil we did. So not only is it industry changing,
but I feel like we should focus on our enjoyment of it rather than the industry changing aspect then.
I thought you liked Resident Evil.
I did like Resident Evil. I just Frog Detective was just like a joy, and like
it is a joy. It is a joy.
Resident Evil, like I enjoyed exploring and that, but I think as I kind of said in that episode, I've had a glimpse of what that game could be, and like I love the modern Resident Evil games, and all of its shortcomings like just reminded me of what I could be playing. I bet if I played that back in the day when it came out, like I would love it. Like I would have like that would have been because I wouldn't have known what I could have, and I'd be like, this game looks amazing. I love the atmosphere. I love exploring it. The fact that it's like a horror game and it's got forgettable music which cuts out every time you change room. Like it doesn't. Yeah. It like so many of the things it goes for as like. It has a shortcoming. It has puzzles, but the puzzles are inconsistent about like the way they work in terms of do you click on the item first or do you click on the object first? It could be either. Like the cutscenes have a charm because they're funny because they're so bad, but they're so bad. Like at the same time, like they could have just been good as another alternative. Yeah. And like I tend to like pushing up a game rather than kicking one down. But I feel like your argument is that I loved Resident Evil. But when I think of the game, that is the stuff that comes to mind for me.
Okay. All right. I mean, I was thinking about putting it like near Killer 7. Like
so Killer 7's at 14. Oh, wait, Frog Detective? Or Resident Evil?
But then when you said, oh, I want to put it below Resident Evil, I was like, oh my God, Resident Evil's back there. Like, we can't possibly put it below Resident Evil.
I thought you said you wanted it down at like 19. So you do want it higher than
I originally wanted it at like Warcraft 2 level. And then when you said below Resident Evil, I was like, oh, I forgot that Resident Evil was that far back. And now I'm like, how could it possibly be below Resident Evil? Like, I didn't realise that Resident Evil was at 17. Like, until we're talking right now.
Oh, okay. Well, so can we switch? So for starters, can we just switch Warcraft 2 and Halo Infinite? So that's 15 and 16. Because I feel like this is going to set up for us both to be happier more down the road.
We can. Also, Halo Infinite is better than Warcraft 2.
Yeah, so, and I'm the one with like mad nostalgia. For those that didn't see the Warcraft 2 episode, like when I was a kid, I wrote a book about Warcraft, which I accidentally titled Wolfcraft because I couldn't spell. Like I'm the Warcraft 2 fan, but I realize what that game is today.
Yeah.
So now we got to work out something for Resident Evil and Frog Detective here because you want it to be above it. So
I think
should we switch Resident Evil and Warcraft and slot Frog Detective in between?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
So it'll be 16 Resident Evil, 17 Frog Detective, 18 Warcraft 2, 19 Ratchet and Clank.
Okay, so yeah, so that whole section now, so it goes 14 Killer 7, Halo Infinite 15, yeah, then 6 Resident Evil, and then 17 Frog Detectives. Is that before we call it a day? There's been a lot of big shifts. Does anything look out of place still when we have a look at this list?
No, I don't think so. Maybe Ooblets are still a bit too high. I don't know if it's
Skyrim at 12. Are we still happy? Forgotten City above Skyrim. There was a few comments from, as we expected, from Skyrim fans thinking that it should have gone higher.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with it there. I think maybe Ooblets is too high still. Like maybe, is that the 9th best game we've done? I don't know about that.
I think it's about 9 in terms of like the fun I've had, and I think you made this point. Like I've not played many like kind of farmy games, like that, and this is the one that I got into, like even more than Stardew Valley, which I did like videos on. Like I just really enjoyed the farming, making ingredients, and like upgrading my house and stuff. Like Ooblets was the one I really liked it, and it was like I loved the world, I loved the look of it and stuff.
Yeah.
Like so, I think that's why it's there rather than it being like, oh yeah, Ooblets is like a more accomplished game than Skyrim or something.
Ooblets kind of has the same style of writing, doesn't it, as Frog Detective, really?
Yeah, it doesn't go quite as hard in terms of like bizarreness.
Yeah. I think Ooblets toes the line better before it gets annoying than Frog Detective
Ooblets
does.
feels more modern, and Frog Detective might be a bit more timeless. It feels a bit more like kid story, whereas Ooblets feels not like memey, but feels like current culture.
Yeah.
Would be a way to separate them, maybe.
I think you're right. And also the list is looking a lot better.
Yeah. God, well done, Death Stranding. Frog Detective, very good. 17 out of 29.
But the real story here.
Yeah, but well done, Death Stranding, for climbing up to 4.
Yeah. The game was amazing. I just love everything about Death Stranding. The more I think about, like, probably because I'm further away from things that were annoying, like accidentally unloading all of your packages and stuff like that. But like, it was just so good and so original and like almost completely invented from nothing. Like, there's nothing in it that's like real. Like, it's completely make believe. It's pretty amazing.
Was it Norman Reedus' The Ride? I think is a real TV show.
Yes, true. And him sitting on the toilet and it's playing the engine sounds.
Don't keep talking about it because that annoyed me so much. I might just argue to put it down again, just because I hate those real life references. Because as you say, I know it's like it's a completely created world. Yes, Iceland. I know that, but in terms of everything else, like I love that. But I hate those references. Like it's like when was it Metal Gear Solid 4 when you listen to your iPod and stuff. I'm like, what is this?
Listen to Kojima's podcast in the game using the iPod. Did you ever go back and do that final level of Death Stranding after the credits?
No, I'll be honest, I have not loaded it up since we did the podcast.
I would say it's worth doing. It's pretty short, but it has a moment. The game has a lot of good moments, and one of them is in that.
Is it already? Because one of the reasons I didn't is like I liked the progression, and I liked building out my empire of bridges and catapults and zip lines and stuff. But I always like the idea that I'm working towards another moment, and I kind of assumed it was just going to be no more moments.
There's one, and it's quite a nice little wrap up on what's going on. So I'd recommend going.
Yeah, maybe if I get some time, I'll go and load it up. But as I said, well done, Frog Detective, number 17 on the list. It's a joy of a game, as we say. It's on Game Pass. If you have it on PC, it will run on almost anything, on Mac as well. Like if you got an old MacBook, double check. Don't take my word for it, but like I'm pretty sure it will run fine. It was actually quite funny because I mentioned this to you, Ollie, is I just got a brand new graphics card. And for anyone who's seen like the new 40 series graphic cards, they're like a joke. You know when they do like a skit where it's like they're trying to make someone look small and they pass a normal size item and they have an oversized one? It looks like the joke oversized version of a graphics card. So it's really powerful. And the first game I played on it was Frog Detective. The fans didn't even start spinning, and I thought something was wrong, but it just didn't even need the fans on. It was so funny. That was the first game that I played.
Isn't it like the size of your Xbox Series X? the graphics card.
It's taller. It's not as fit. The volume's probably similar. It just about fit in my fan. It is a joke. That
is
thing.
insane. Okay, I'm gonna run through what we've got coming up. So,
Please do.
Oh, maybe I should do my final frog joke actually. Where do frogs get their glasses?
I don't know. Tell me.
Hoptician.
Did you look for like specifically bad frog jokes?
No,
Because I feel like
no.
the's got to be good.
No,
frog jokes.
no. I found a list of 40 and I picked my favourite 5. So
Oh,
a little
that's
insight
brilliant.
into my mind there, the sort of things I find funny. And also I had another joke which I didn't use, which I was trying to figure out as we were talking, which was like, we did this game to compare it to another game with a very similar lead, which you were going to be thinking, oh, Carrier Blaster. And then I was going to be like, actually, Disco Elysium is the one.
Oh, detective.
Man, I got the idea of the joke. If anyone can think of it better, write it in the comments. you can tell us. Okay, so upcoming games. Carrier Blaster, December 16th. Also pretty short. I'm on the final level of it already. And it's taken me about 3 hours. So not bad.
Okay, and then that's is that only where is that Switch or is that multiple platforms? Do you know?
Switch, PC definitely, iOS definitely, and it might be on PS4.
Okay, give it a Google.
Give it a Google, and then we've got the Christmas quiz on December 23rd, locked in, which is going to be pretty exciting.
Sorry, Christmas. What's the what's Chris? Oh, I thought this is Frog Mums. Who was this? What's this Christmas? Christmas, you speak.
It's like
No
another
one cares about that.
Other cultures do Christmas. We don't do it here, so we have Frog Month quiz, and then in January the 13th we've got Half-Life Alyx, which is a VR game. And if you do have a VR headset and somehow don't have Half-Life Alyx, it's currently on sale for only £20, which I got today. That's pretty good. And then after that, we have Phoenix Wright, January 27th. And we're playing the first game in the original trilogy. So I'm going to be playing it on probably on Xbox, maybe on Switch. But you can also play the DS version because they're exactly the same, just up-resed. So
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll leave it there. I want to put a call out for a very specific type of game suggestion. Is I realised that we're yet to do a multiplayer only game, and it would be very easy for us to pick. No, you know what I mean. Kind of like that's. It didn't feel like a multiplayer. I mean, it is, but you know what I mean.
Sorry.
So
I don't
yeah,
need to wield your fireworks.
It would be very easy for us to pick like Overwatch or Apex Legends, which are like, games Ollie and I like, Fortnite or something. I mean, and I'm not saying we won't do those, but if there are any like great multiplayer only or heavily multiplayer focused games, I feel like that's kind of one of the genres, if you can consider that a genre, that we're yet to touch, because we're getting most boxes ticked now in terms of genres.
Yeah. Someone asked me what the last, like, how diverse my gaming tastes were, and I was like, here's every game I've played in the last year, and it's just like every single genre. We don't have a proper racing game though.
No, we've only got Driver San Francisco, and I feel like it would have to be like something like a very specific type of racing game for us to be able to chat about it for an hour. I think, especially as neither of us are big car people. And I feel like Drivers tick that box. It has racing in it.
It has driving in it. Yeah,
we've covered for a while. It's got racing. It has racing.
Oh, it does have
racing.
Races. Yeah, it does have racing. Yeah.
Yeah. We did a best of 3 on Forza. What more do you want, guys? Come on.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was a funny game as well. Actually, Driver. That was pretty funny. A lot of funny jokes in that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
That was a great game.
I think that's everything. We're done.
Okay. Right, brilliant. So thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks for Carrier Blaster, and then also we're going to have the Christmas quiz coming up once again with Jack Marshall. If you haven't heard the last one, listen to it first. It was great. Good one to watch the video for as well. It was really funny. He was an amazing host, and fingers crossed his puzzles and questions, not puzzles, will be I'm just so desperate for puzzles, will be just as fun as last year. I'm sure they will, so looking forward to chatting to him again. Hopefully you'll stay tuned for that, but apart from that, cheers for watching or listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Cheers, bye.